There was a time when people were ignorant and careless about the harm they were causing to their world.
Very few people knew about this issue because it was not commonly discussed and had little importance. Between the 1960s to the 1980s, scientists studied Venus, Earth, and Mars to wonder how each planet formed differently when having similar origins. According to NASA, geoscientists believe that our climate could only change relatively slowly on timescales of thousands of years or longer. But the Earth's climate changed rapidly in the past, which started political interest. In July of 2000, the Junior Atlantic Monthly shows that scientists were still exploring what global warming was and learned that they had much to discover. They also learned that they had to take action. However, many citizens ignored these new findings until former Vice President Al Gore made a bold decision to save our world.
Albert Arnold Gore Jr. was the 45th Vice President of the United States from 1993 to 2001, alongside Bill Clinton. He was the creator of a well-known documentary that won 2 Oscars, as well as many other books and movies. He is the founder of the Climate Real Project and one of the members of the Apple Incorporated board. Furthermore, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to spread awareness about climate change.
In 2006, Mr. Gore released his documentary An Inconvenient Truth that covered the past, current, and future issue of climate change. He broke the barrier of ignorance and carelessness and opened the eyes of the young and old by motivating the global society to research further on the topic of climate change, increasing environmental concerns, and inspiring a generation to preserve the environment. When Al Gore's documentary was first released, people were shocked by the facts and the impact that they had on the world. Many parents started to worry about their children and the growing generation that would be endangered. The environment plays a vital role in human existence, and without the earth, there would be no human life. According to Robert Patrick, a retired naval officer who worked on submarines, climate change has become a mainstream issue.
Constant um, awareness, raising of awareness by those who are most interested in it, and that's scientists and geologists, I suppose, and all the related scientific fields, as well as people who want to use it for their own personal agenda.
People who were in the scientific world were more impacted by this documentary because they had to change the way that they work to adapt to the new changes. If a company wasn't adapting to these changes, then they would lose sales and money. When Al Gore first released his documentary, he meant to change the world. But he and Bill Clinton were both controversial figures at the time, and because of this, some people distrusted his credibility and didn't believe what he had to say. A UK study found that showing selective clips from An Inconvenient Truth resulted in participants feeling more empowered and more motivated to make lifestyle changes to fight climate change. This shows the impact of An Inconvenient Truth and people's determination to help the Earth after learning about the damage humans had done to it. Surveys have shown that students who watched An Inconvenient Truth increased their willingness to make each individual's carbon footprint smaller. But that doesn't mean the willingness turned into action. It did lead to behavior changes among people, but not enough. Because Al Gore motivated the world to learn more about climate change, much more was done, including a greater use of solar panels and electric vehicles.
Global warming is on the rise as we continue to emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Storms become more frequent and ice caps melt, which eventually causes our ocean levels to rise. Al Gore's efforts and actions in the community have concerned people about the issues that might branch off of climate change in the future. According to Eliza Clark, Al Gore's courage and commitment to science-based decision-making cemented my conviction that climate change is the greatest challenge facing our society and businesses today. Over the past decade, our society has acknowledged the consequences of climate change from the impacts of figures like Al Gore. Gore's strong personality and confidence when presenting this conflict had many people on edge about the world that we live in now, the movie capturing many people's attention from the ordinary to the famous. Ariana Huffington is a Greek American writer who was inspired by Gore. Huffington states, modeling the way our public figures and especially our would-be presidents should be operating from the heart and true to themselves, standing for something more important than just winning and more powerful than the fear of losing. Al Gore not only directed the documentary An Inconvenient Truth, but he is continuing to persuade people that climate change is a huge problem, even after the time of the documentary. Gore, a former U.S. presidential candidate who has campaigned for years for more climate friendly policies in the U.S. and globally, presented an updated quick-fire version of the slideshow to a large audience in Oxford this week at the Skull World Forum on Social Entrepreneurship. Gore's passion to save this earth has set people to think that it is their responsibility to take care of this earth. When Al Gore first got a seat in the House, he ordered hearings about climate change. In the U.S. House of Representatives, he organized the first congressional hearing on man-made global warming in 1981. In the Senate, Vice President Gore held numerous hearings on the climate crisis and hosted an international conference to discuss his proposal for a global Marshall Plan, a unified response to the worldwide environmental crisis. Even during Al Gore's election campaign, his discussions revolved around solutions for global warming instead of talking about the common topics. Al Gore was very involved in the government and intertwined his political views with climate change.
Al Gore's bold measures on the climate crisis inspired generations to preserve the environment. Many professionals and non-professionals have witnessed the change in our culture, and their lives were drastically changed due to an inconvenient truth. The principal of California Technologies, Jill Lenartz, was in her undergrad career when An Inconvenient Truth was released. However, she says that she did not realize the importance of the film in society until she got a job. The film inspired her to be part of the environmental movement, and it led her to work in the field of corporate sustainability and communications. Her experiences, dynamic, and perspective show that Al Gore's documentary also impacted the world in the long run. In 2011, Claudia Corollia wrote in her diary, I saw how Al Gore tried to fight, to open people's eyes. He ran for presidency against George Bush, and his opponent laughed at him because he cared about nature. She witnessed Al Gore's bold opinion and witnessed many people ignore the truth. Al Gore's documentary educated many people, inspiring them to fight for their world. His documentary motivated Claudia to stand up for her opinion and take action to solve the problem that humans were causing. In addition, Al Gore's documentary changed the community and changed the company economy. Before An Inconvenient Truth came out, a CNN commentator named Van Jones and one of his coworkers at the CNN Center were trying to advertise a new project to give to the poor community members jobs that dealt with the environment to fight pollution. However, most people thought that it was a useless project and was unnecessary. Mr. Jones says, I had been promoting ecological solutions in communities of color. Julia Butterfly Hill, who at the time was a big voice, and I were doing conferences, trying to bring people of color and young white activists together on ecological solutions. We were creating the Green Jobs Corps in Oakland to get urban youth trained for solar energy. But there was no real passionate focus in the country on the problem. My solutions were not that interesting to people. When the film came out, suddenly everyone was interested in what I was talking about, which was creating green jobs for poor people so we could fight pollution and poverty at the same time. We went from the domain of being eco-freaks to the domain of being eco-chick. This quote shows that many jobs were added to the public and many related to the climate change of saving our world. Furthermore, even after Al Gore released his documentary, he has spread awareness about global warming to the whole earth and has worked with leaders in industries to switch energy economies, manufacturing, to renewable energies such as solar power and new inventions.
Al Gore has gone on to build an empire that surrounded climate change and how we as a society can help with the conflict. He has broken the barrier of ignorance on climate change by inspiring the world to make a difference, motivating scientists to research further, and has overall increased environmental concerns